What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates wave of figures. We're starting Disney Wave 2 with maybe the figure that is not high on everybody's list. I'm not so sure. This is definitely the oddball figure compared to the rest, and if my wife had her way, I'd be reviewing Alice or Robin Hood first. But I had to go with Hyacinth the Hippo. Not because, well, I do love Fantasia. It's not because I love Fantasia. It's because this is a giant hippo figure. So, I mean, you gotta check it out. It's just so weird. And this might be the biggest Ultimate so far. We're gonna have to do some size comparisons because this figure is absolutely massive and comes in a humongous, and I can't state this enough, humongous box. It's truly massive. I mean, it's a huge figure, but she's also got a lot of large extra parts. So yeah, she gets a big old package here. Now, she still gets the same slipcover treatment that we're used to seeing for Ultimates, same style of box. You got that trapezoidal style shape. She gets a sort of pinkish hue for her slipcover. You've got this sort of Fantasia magic swirl going around, sort of like a starlight motif. It is chromed out and foiled out, but of course, pull that slipcover off, and we've got our monstrous figure there in the window. And I just can't state enough how big she is. She is enormous. She's almost too big for this package, but I figured they made it just big enough to fit her in there. She's got a pink and purple motif, very much goes along with her scene in Fantasia, and then the back of the package gives us a shot of her as well as a small bio for this absolutely enormous hippo figure. So let's do it. Let's pull her out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Ultimates Hyacinth the Hippo. So again, this is from Fantasia. Well, you might know this from Roger Rabbit also, but this is a Fantasia thing for me personally. And of course, we got Sorcerer Mickey in Wave 1, so we're continuing a small trend here with Fantasia stuff. But this is just the weirdest thing. Like there's no way to really sugarcoat that. This is a weird, weird figure. Not just because of what it is, but the fact that it exists is just, I don't know, it's just crazy. So let's see what this thing can do, see how it moves around. As I'm sure you can expect, it is a different kind of figure than a lot of other figures. It, however, does move surprisingly well. Like, she is capable of some poses. You can get her on one foot to kind of have her in the air doing some ballet stuff. So she's a big, fat, chunky hippo, but she still moves surprisingly well. So we've got a head that can look up really, really nice. If there's one thing I'm going to harp on with this figure, it's the fact that of all things Ultimates, there's a lot of figures that have really restricted heads, and she really doesn't. I mean, look at that range. She has a really big ball peg that you can work with. Down really isn't so much, but she does have some down. You've got some tilt side to side, and of course you've got rotation. Arms out at the shoulders, they're going to rotate, of course. We've got our single jointed elbows. They're not 90 degrees, and I'm sure I understand why. I would have preferred them to have a deeper cut, but this kind of preserves her really fat arms. And honestly, I'm not sure what I'm ever going to be doing with her except just sort of being in some sort of weird pose, you know, ballet stuff. You do have a little bit of shimmy there, but it's not necessarily like a full-on swivel. It has some, but it can't go all the way. You've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. Diaphragm. I'm really surprised that she has anything here, honestly, but she has. Let's pull that tutu up a little bit. That sounds weird. She has a full-on cut here. And it's a rotation point, as I'm sure you can expect, but there is a slight bit of movement here, mostly rearing her back, and that allows her head to go up even higher, you know, in terms of the angle of the body. But it does have some movement there, not really any tilt, but the fact that it exists on its own and it works, I'm happy with. Legs are kind of weird. They go out, I mean, they're like big blobs almost. They go out, and then they swivel. They don't necessarily kick forward, they are a swivel. The knees, I don't think there's actually anything in there except a swivel. And even if there was, I don't think it would do anything. So I'm not so sure that I'm hung up on that. I kind of wonder why it even exists, that cut though, if there's nothing there. Like, there's really not much to do with that cut. The ankles, however, are pretty robust. And I've mentioned that you can get her on one foot and she will stay. They are pretty solid. So you've got really, really good hinge. There's a little bit of a ratchet action going on there. And you've got really good rocker because there's just nothing in the way. So, I mean, she does move pretty well. I kind of wish her tail rotated. I don't know that that's truly necessary, but I kind of wish it did. But she moves surprisingly well. I mean, she's certainly not some ultra-articulated figure that you're going to get in the wildest positions. But when you kind of look at what this is, I mean, this is a big chunk of plastic. But she does move surprisingly well, and I'm very, very happy that she's able to get that head reared back, because of course when you're getting her into some sort of ballet type positions where she's sort of, you know, being a little aloof almost, I don't say that word very often, she can sort of get her head up there, and it just works with what you are going to potentially be trying to do with a big ballet hippo. Ultimately, I think the big area where this figure is going to have a lot of impact is, of course, I mean, obviously it's going to be the size and just the shelf presence of this thing, because she's huge, and she's not huge in a sense that she's heavy. This figure is surprisingly hollow in many ways, which I think is a good thing, helps with a lot of posing, but she's big. I mean, just look at her at the profile. There is a lot of figure here. She's definitely not the tallest Ultimates, but she's going to give basically all the big ones a run for their money. And of course, we'll do some size comparisons to give you an idea of exactly how much space she's going to need. But she has a very, very weird profile and design, and you can see, I mean, she's definitely just, there's no easy way to say it, she's just a big fat figure, and everything about her very much kind of exudes the fact that this is a, you know, an upright hippo. So you've got the super, super big, you know, chest and butt, and the big fat legs and thighs and huge arms, but I think it really looks like her. I mean, this is a really good interpretation of the Fantasia hippos, because of course she's not the only one. This is the one we're talking about at the moment, but you can change her look up to make her the background hippos as well. And speaking of that, one of the key areas of what changes this one up to be something else is the fact that she has the yellow soft goods versus pink. So you get the yellow tutu on her in the box, and it's just sort of like this, you know, like fishnet kind of stuff. And this is a Velcro piece that will cinch around her back, so you can just take it off if you want to have her without the tutu. You can do that. And one thing I do like about this is that because she has that diaphragm cut, you know, if you get it in the right spot, it will help to sort of hide that cut pretty well. It just sort of vanishes after a while. And then of course she does have the yellow like ballet slippers down here as well. These are fully painted feet, so the skin tone and the actual shoe itself is painted. One area where this figure could probably use a little attention is the paint. There isn't a lot on her, really, and I know in some ways that's fine. I would have liked to have seen some shading on her a little bit, but you've got mostly just the belly, basically. So the belly is painted this sort of, I don't know, different brown, and the fingers and the palms are also painted that same shade of beige brown color. The rest of the figure is overwhelmingly just cast plastic, which the skin tone does work and it matches, so it's not that big a deal. I just kind of wish it would have had a little bit of shading. The head, though, is really an area that I think they absolutely nailed. It is kind of weird to look at this figure like dead on, especially straight on, because all you see is the nose, but then you can sort of, you know, peer over it, and you've got those eyes, and that's really the only area that has any real paint. The lips are painted, but the eyes look really good. They're very clean and crisp, and they definitely pop against this sort of, you know, field of brown here, basically. So you've got the eyelashes and the eyes fully painted, and I think they really captured the look of, you know, the weird shape of a hippo's head, which of course is done up in this animated style, while also retaining all of the, I guess, the Disney aesthetic here, because she definitely looks, I mean, to me, she looks like she jumped right out of Fantasia, and I'm really happy with the way she looks. Of course, like I mentioned before, she does have the little stubby tail back there also. So yeah, I mean, she's pretty cool. I think she has a lot of size. The sculpt looks good. There's not a ton of detail to it because, of course, they're trying to mimic animation, so it is very flat in many areas, but I'm not saying that in a negative way. It very much looks like the source material, and I think they did a really good job. If I have one real criticism, it's that I wish there was maybe a little bit of shading on some of the skin tone just to give it a little bit more punch, since it's overwhelmingly just cast in this brown. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, I've already mentioned a few times, she's a big figure. So let's start with some Ultimates. So here's Leo here on the left, and we've got our small Disney stuff here on the right. So Pinocchio and Mickey from Wave 1, and you can see, I mean, Pinocchio is absolutely dwarfed by her for sure. Let's move these guys aside, and let's do something a little bit bigger, something that's definitely going to sort of hammer it home. You know, there's Slithe, and Slithe is not the tallest figure, but he is huge. He is incredibly bulky, and he's very heavy, which is a big comparison point for this figure because Hyacinth is not heavy. Like I said, she's very hollow, which I think is a big benefit for her. But Sly, I mean, even he looks diminutive next to her. Let's move him aside. And here she is with a Mythic Legions figure. And then let's move Leo aside, and let's do a Legends figure. There's Captain Britain. He's a little bit of a larger size, but even then it gives you an idea of exactly what you're working with here, because not only does she have a lot of height, she has just girth and depth, and pretty much any other measurement, she has a lot of it. She is a really, really big figure with, well, let's face it, a hippo's going to have a lot of shelf presence to begin with, but just at this size, she's definitely going to have a lot of shelf presence. Now, as far as accessories goes, this is a segment of Fantasia, so obviously there's not like a million things they could give Hyacinth, but they did fill out this box pretty well. And the name of the game here, for the most part anyway, is the fact that this figure can represent two different things, Hyacinth and also the other background hippos, basically, which wore pink. So you do get swappable soft goods, and again, like I said with the first set, they just have Velcro, so they just Velcro together and you can cinch it around her waist. And you also get swappable feet, because of course they have matching ballet slippers. So you can change this one out to be the pink version. We also get some extra heads. And I will say, and this is one area where this figure has caused some frustration for me, because getting the heads off and on has been really difficult. So if you try it, obviously heat everything up. I don't think that there's a situation where the pegs and holes are too oddly sized for each other. They just are just tight enough where it's presenting a challenge. So you've got this head where she's, kind of fluttering her eyes a little bit, being a little bashful almost. And then you've got the open mouth, which is fully painted with those stubby teeth. So I really, really like this one. And again, I mean, this box is crammed full because this head is absolutely enormous. But it's not even the biggest head, because we get another one where her mouth is fully open. You could put like a whole figure in here, and she's you can use this for her eating or singing or whatever you're going to have her do. But I do really like this, and the open painted mouths on these just look tremendous, so I'm really happy with those. And then we also get a bunch of hands. So she comes with these basically like dancing, sort of splayed finger hands. We get a few hands that honestly I'm not really sure what these are for. We get a set of hands that have basically just like regular open palms. They're not as stylized as the one she comes with in the box. We get this one, which is, just slightly stylized, where her fingers are almost twirling a little bit. And then you get this one, which is very similar to the one she comes with in the box, but it's not exactly the same shape. The fingers aren't as splayed. We get a singular gripping hand. And then we get like the more unique hand. So we get the hand that is holding the grapes, which I really like this one. So this is all connected. It's all one piece. So you've got the big grapes here. You can sort of shove it in her mouth, when she's, when you've got one of these on. Of course, that's what it's intended for. And then we've also got this one, which is holding the little powder dish container thing. But it also opens, and the actual, powder puff is in there. I will say that I'm having a lot of trouble getting this back in without some of this fur like poking out of the sides, but you can just poke it in. I do really like this. I'm glad they included that. I kind of thought that at first it was just going to be a closed thing, but then I realized that the top came off, which is kind of cool. And she can, hold that in the gripping hand. And then the last thing you get is a mirror, because of course she needs a mirror to check herself out. So both waves so far of Ultimates Disney have included a mirror accessory. We got a theme going so far. So she does have a lot of stuff here. And again, some crazy fool out there is going to army build this thing. I'm certain of it. We're going to see a bunch of pink tutued hippos at some point. I feel oddly compelled to try and do that, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna stay strong. But I do like the fact that they give us both outfits. I love these extra heads. This one in particular is my favorite. I'll probably display her with this one. There's just a lot going on there, so it looks great. And then you get a bunch of hands. Some of them I'm not so sure about, but then I do like things like the little powder puff. Little touches like that really kind of beef up all the stuff that she comes with. So yeah, overall, I am pretty happy with this figure. It's not perfect, you know, it's still a really chunky figure that has some articulation hangups because of what it is, but I'm still just surprised that this thing even exists. Its existence alone is just wild to me. It's cool to be able to have something like this if you care enough about Fantasia or Disney to want something like this. It's obviously not going to be for everybody. I mean, come on, it's a giant hippo figure that's wearing a tutu, but it's easily one of the biggest figures in the Ultimates line. Definitely in terms of bulk, it's not the tallest, obviously, but it's up there. It's a really big figure. It's goofy. It's weird. It's an army builder if you are insane enough to go down that road, and it comes with some solid accessories. It's just a weird figure, and I love weird, beefy, chunky figures, and this thing is all of it. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Disney Wave 2 Hyacinth the Hippo. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.